Hello everybody, good evening. It is episode 174 of the Phil Swallow podcast, broadcasting live from Croydon and on YouTube, 7:30pm UK time, that's British summertime for a few weeks, 11th September 2024. Evening Carol. So, what are we going to cover today? Well, on my little agenda, which I kind of copy and paste into this afterwards, I say no particular order. There's a rough order, and the rough order is things that have happened and then things that I'm planning to do. So let's start with things that have happened. Well, Sue and I just got back on the weekend from a week's holiday in Suffolk. We're not very good at organising these things sometimes. We planned it quite late, and we stayed in a cottage. The cottage was attached to a farm. It was a dairy part of the farm at Mutford in Suffolk. And it's sort of the northern part of Suffolk, so it's not far from the Norfolk border. Really nice. Weather was great. It was the first chance to give my new electric vehicle a run, and it was great. The guy had a charger at the farm, so I was able to use that and pay him for the privilege. But yeah, we got an EV. I think I mentioned it on the previous podcast. Got an EV in July. So I had that a few weeks now, and yeah, it was brilliant over the run. The range was great and accurate, and obviously because we're doing a lot of driving during the day, it didn't need regular topping up, but I just kind of thought we might just suddenly decide to go on a big trip, so I kept it fairly well topped up. We normally had started each day with at least a couple of 100 miles of range, but we didn't do that mileage in a day. Lovely part of the world. You could argue it's sometimes too quiet. We knew some of the towns that from previous visits, but we had, on the first day, we had a very specific, like the day after travel, we had a very specific visit to attend, which was Strumpshaw Steam Museum. And if you've seen the channel, I uploaded a video a couple of days ago, and the reason to go to that, well, apart from the fact they had an event on called a Trosh, Trosh, and it was basically probably an old dialect word for threshing of hay and stuff when they make bales of hay. So there was steam-driven machinery there, and there was shire horses and loads of things going on. It was a lovely little event, and it was on over the weekend. And I was given the name of somebody to ask for who knew about this particular exhibit I wanted to see in the museum, and it was one of the beam engines that used to be Addington Well pumping station, which is just around the corner from here. And I did a video about that a year or so ago, 18 months ago, I do forget sometimes, which was all about the typhoid outbreak that took place in 1937, and it was quite horrific in Croydon. One of the engines, there were two big Victorian beam engines. One, let's rewind a bit. The building itself was fantastic. Absolutely wonderful Victorian architecture. It actually was listed, and then for whatever reason they had to modernise the site, and they were told they could pull the building down, but they had to find a home for the two engines. One went to Crossness in London, and it's still in pieces on the lawn outside the main building there, and the other one went to Strumpshaw. The site closed in 1975. They transported it up there about 3 trips, I think they said, 100 tons of machinery, and they finally got it going again in 1983. And the engineer that closed it down in Addington in 75 started it up again using compressed air in 1983, which was brilliant story. But this guy that I got the name of, Michael Crozier, I'm told he was the guy that knew everything about it, and he did. But what was really amazing was the fact that he lives just around the corner, like now, still, in New Addington, and he's been going up there since 1966. His father-in-law used to work on the engine round the corner, and what a lovely guy, great character. New chapter and verse about it. He even let me up the steps, which are fenced off normally, to see the top where the beam goes, and that was a nice little extra. So I put a couple of little clips in the video. So that was I'm not sure if I cut that bit, but I refer to it as a kind of pilgrimage, because ever since I knew that part of the story, I wanted to make my way up to Strumpshaw, and Sue loves all that stuff as well, which is a bonus. So we had a really great day there, and I obviously did the filming. We saw another engine next to it was from Warlingham in Croydon, and it made me think that, yeah, I do need to do the water history story, because it's quite a nice story of how it went from extracting water from filthy ponds in sort of the southern part of Croydon to what we have today, which is clean water. Well, you need to read the headlines about that, but cleanish. So that was the video that I put together that went live the other day, called something like a Croydon Victorian Treasure now in Norfolk, something like that. So it's only a short one as well, only 4 minutes, so you won't have to suffer it. No, you won't have to watch it for too long. So that was good fun to put together. Other things that we did up there, I mean, we did some kind of chill out days, you know, visited some of the nice coastal places like Southwold, but also it was, in terms of history, the whole of East Anglia was the main location for United States air bases during World War II. Now, in this area where we live, it's all about fighter stations, Battle of Britain, defending London, you know, Kenley, Croydon, Biggin Hill and the like. The story has been told many times over. But with these, it was a totally different ballgame. So if you've seen Masters of the Air on Apple TV, that was the 100th Bomb Group, and they were based at Thorpe Abbotts in Norfolk. So we visited the Thorpe Abbotts base. Absolutely amazing. The museum's brilliant. The control tower's excellent. And the volunteers that help out of these places are really, really so full of knowledge. And they were saying about how the families, and it's now kind of not just kids, sons, daughters, but grandkids, make regular visits over to the sites where their fathers served. And one guy said to me, he's quite a big sort of burly fella, and he said, I'm getting quite good at man hugs now, because he said people walk in and they start reading the stories and tears flow. You know, it's quite something. And that Masters of the Air on Apple TV really does tell a very accurate story of what went on. So we visited that. That was mainly B-17s and Mustangs and the like up there. And we also went to one at Halesworth. Halesworth is near where we stayed before. It's actually called Holton Airfield. And it was just, we went there on a Sunday afternoon. Again, volunteers full of knowledge. One guy, I suppose he must be in his late 80s. He was based near there. He sort of lived in that area all his life. Now, he remembers the stories, or he remembers, rewind again, he remembers going and seeing the planes taking off and landing, occasionally hearing terrible crash landings, various explosions, all sorts, because it wasn't always things that went on in combat. You know, often there were horrific accidents and things that took place, training accidents and the like. But yeah, to meet somebody who's actually there and remembered it. I mean, my mum remembers, you know, elements of the war from her story in southeast London. But again, this is a different ballgame. You know, he's a kid. Even his mates are kind of, you know, no doubt looking to pick up shrapnel and the like. And he's still around now, supporting the work the museum do and helping to tell those stories. I hope that they have a steady stream of volunteers going forward that can take over from some of the older guys. I'm sure they will. But the exhibits there were just amazing, too numerous to really explain. All I'd say is, if you find yourself in East Anglia and you just have some time to spare, often they're open on a Sunday and then one day in midweek. And I think the Sunday slots are normally all year round, so bear that in mind. Absolutely well worth it. And I think both of them were free to get in, but we made sure we sort of donated and bought a couple of things in souvenir shops and the like. Yeah, so absolutely good evening to you, sir. Absolutely great fun. And again, I feel that even though we saw that TV series recently about the US support that we had during World War II, to sort of get up close to it really meant something. It was it was really quite humbling and, you know, I say emotional in a way, certainly when you read the stories. So that was really, really great. The other thing we did while we were up there is meet up an old school friend. So Sue and I went to the same school. I've told the story before, but anyway, we went off and had different lives and different partners and then met up again in more recent times. And so we got mutual friends in our group. And one of our friends, Graham, we met up with him and his wife and had a nice pub lunch and a massive catch up. So that was great fun. It's funny, you sort of, when you get in these situations, you don't talk for very long and it feels like you only saw them the previous day, That was really great fun. So yes, always good fun to track down and stay in touch with the old buddies from years gone by. Some of the other things I've been working on, I actually spent loads of time on it today, is talks that I've got coming up. So one of them is 25th. When's that? 2 weeks tonight. I will be standing in front of people with my laptop and doing a presentation with Carol Roberts from the Croydon Natural History and Scientific Society. Come along if you can. It's in the United Reformed Church Hall, East Croydon. And it's about Overhill, the house and the land and the history of it in Warlingham. And my part is about the Gardner family and Hamsey Green Airfield and the like and their stories. So it's kind of, I've got a section within the overall talk and the kind of the filling in the sandwich, perhaps. So I've been doing some work on that today. It's a really great story. So I've done a video about it, but it's a story that's developed more since then. And I've also got one coming up in Sanderstead. Now this was, I originally had this booked to tell the story of Benjamin Beeson, the Sanderstead policeman. And I had a phone call from the lady who booked me, probably the week before holiday. And she said, "Can you change the subject of the talk?" And it was like, maybe. And then she'd heard about the Hamsey Green Airfield story, and she asked if that could be done instead. And I said, perfectly happy to do that. It's kind of oven ready, good to go. So I'll be doing that one. That's a kind of closed group in Sanderstead. So that's good. I find that I'm sometimes my own worst enemy. Enemy. In terms of how I just get involved in things. And some of those might just be things that are linked to what I do with the history and the just local stuff. But I decided to do something else, to add something else to that pot of already busy stuff that's going on. And I dusted down my guitars before I went away. So I'm not sure I've even ever mentioned this before. Maybe not. Anyway, so the story is, in the 1970s, I had guitar lessons, and in the early 80s, some bands in and out, and then a neighbour asked me if I'd like to join a band that they did functions, dinner dances, clubs and all that sort of stuff. And it was a way of kind of going professional in terms of what we were doing. So throughout the 1980s, certainly the middle section of the 1980s, I was doing regular gigs, sometimes Friday, Saturday, Sunday, as well as a day job. And so I got quite proficient at playing the guitar. We played some pubs locally in Chelsea and Warlingham, Horseshoe, played one of the pubs in Oxted, played the Bull, Chelsea Common. On the night that Andy and Fergie got married, we played there, I seem to recall. Anyway, it doesn't go away. It's kind of in your mind, but obviously your fingers and that get a bit rusty, and the connection between your brain and your fingers certainly gets rusty. But we went to a family event. Nice, brilliant. I'm glad there's another guitar nerd in the chat. So we went to a family party August time, and just got chatting to someone, another friend of their family. I didn't know who they were, and I'll talk about that in a minute, Mickey. So one of the guys we met, lovely couple, he was a keen guitarist. Yes, with Neil Pepper. And I said to him, right, commitment, I'm going to get my guitars out. So I did. And now, years ago, when I was playing originally, everything was quite sort of analogue. Yes, a guitar went into an amp with some pedals in between. But nowadays it's a different story. You have kind of, I don't know, very flashy tuners that just clip on the headstock of the guitar, and I bought one of them. They were quite cheap. And also, I'm thinking, I've got a computer in front of me where I do audio-visual stuff, and I'm quite experienced at doing audio editing, and I've got Apple Logic Pro, which is a great kind of audio interface package program. So why don't I put it all together? So I bought a little audio interface, and I'm actually using that for this stream, so I hope it's nice and loud and clear. And that enables me to have the mic going in and also to plug my guitar in to the computer. And it's like a new world. I must admit, I'm still learning this, but you've basically got an amplifier and effects pedals and all you could ever wish for in the computer. It's amazing, absolutely amazing. And I just got all that stuff kind of delivered and connected up and tested before we went away. So now it's a case of finding some time again to kind of blow off some of the rust. And of course, the other brilliant thing is you get apps nowadays to like have your chord shapes in. You've got YouTube, of which I'm familiar, and from there you can do all sorts of breaking down of guitar solos and play alongs and all sorts. It's brilliant. So I'm looking to tap into that free resource to get back up to speed. I don't know I don't know where it'll go. So a friend of mine runs, Neil Pepper, who's been mentioned on this chat, runs a folk and blues club, and they have a kind of, you just turn up your guitar and plug it in and sing some songs. So that might happen. I won't tell you before, I'll tell you after. No. He every time I've gone along there to take photographs, he said to me, you must come along. So that might happen now. And it's just been great to kind of get back into it. I feel I still don't listen to much music, but my old back catalogue of mainly Not For the Dire Straits, Steely Dan, Doobie Brothers, the kind of whole 70s guitar band sound is just something I'll be looking to recreate in this very room. So watch out. I'm not sure where it'll go, but I know I'm going to have fun on that journey. So that's that. Now, I'm going to respond to Mickey Droyboy's comment. Walked the dog around Kenley Aerodrome last week. They put the faces and stories of many Canadian airmen that died during the Second World War. Quite a nice touch. And, Mickey, I hope you've seen my video, because back in April, just after that had been opened, in fact, it's only there till November, I believe, there was an event for the Royal Canadian Air Force 100th year anniversary for this year. And that's why they've actually put those round there. So I went round there with Linda from the Kenley, I've forgotten the name of the group, Kenley Revival. Sorry, Linda, if you're watching this. Kenley Revival, and they've done some absolutely brilliant work putting all that together. Loads of effort put in, and it's gone down very well. So we did the video to kind of help, no pun intended, but signpost that was there. And from there you can look up the Kenley Revival site and so on and so forth. Oh, brilliant. Glad you saw it. So yeah, it's a very special place, Kenley. The airfields that we saw when we were in East Anglia, most of them get repurposed. You've got a huge amount of land, particularly where you had B-17 flying fortresses, and any modern planes need even more runway. Linda is amazing. She's a wonderful person. I was messaging her earlier on about something else. So, so the airfield kind of footprint, the fact that Kenley still have it, I think is absolutely amazing, and a number of the blast pens around there. And they're doing an open house this weekend. It may have sold out with tickets, but I think if you kind of turned up and had a look around, you might still get a sneak peek. I also did a video from open house last year when I went inside one of the blast pens, one of the shelters. So perhaps have a look at that one. So that's to me the treasure of Kenley, is that you can stand there and look out over the actual airspace where all of these absolute heroes took off from, to help defend London and take the fight abroad, of course. So it's a really special place. Many of the other sites, so even with the control towers at Thorpe Abbotts, but there's a bit of kind of the perimeter track and a bit of runway with some farmers storing bales of hay and things, but a lot of it's just been chopped back. They actually, dug up the runway, and because it was farmland, it was more useful to be farmed upon than just kept as a huge historic relic. But at least I got the control tower there and some other Nissen huts and the like. Halesworth, they didn't really have anything. The building was near to, part of the building was on the land that was part of the airfield, and their museum's in a dedicated house or building. But yeah, it was very, very special place. And that's why I think when you go to these places, this might sound a bit strange, but just make sure you stand and just take some time to yourself and just look out at the space and then look up in the air and kind of just visualize what would have happened there and all those stories and tragedy and success that took place on the back of that. It's really quite a thing. And we're giving 2 or 3 minutes maybe of this kind of reflection, but there's a lot of value for people that that do it. So I believe so. Right. So we got some other. Let's see some comments. Did a story on your husband's granddad who was stationed at Kenley during World War II. That's brilliant. Spent much of your childhood poking around Kenley Aerodrome. Yeah, I mean, I don't doubt that there's probably still some bits and pieces out there. I think they don't encourage going out there and digging around, of course, but a lot of these things would have long gone by now. But yeah, it was very special place, Kenley. Croydon too. In fact, I'm going to the Croydon. I think the Kenley event's Saturday, and I've got another open house thing that I'm going to. Croydon are doing something on Sunday with the Kenley team going there. So I'm going to that. I've been to Croydon before, and I've made the video about Croydon Airport. But yeah, so it's Croydon's a brilliant place, well worth a visit too. With Croydon, of course, you got the building, you've got the terminal building, the aerodrome building, but you haven't really got anything else. Very little land still around from that day. Douglas Bader was there for a while. 242 Squadron, top of my head. Quite the guy, Douglas Bader. When I did a talk in May at Warlingham for Warlingham WI about Hamsey Green Airfield, Douglas Bader's linked to that because of the story of the Gardner family. And a lady came up to me afterwards and she said, you were amazing. No, she didn't. She said, thanks for the talk. And she said that she worked with Douglas Bader for 10 years at Shell in London, which was cool. Would never have known, of course. But she indeed had some stories to tell. So what a segue, because obviously you haven't seen my notes, but my notes are next Open House Festival, excuse me. So this open house thing, I think it's countrywide. If you just Google it, you'll see open house. So yeah, Kenley have got some events. Some people do things like open their houses up. So there's a house in Purley. As you go the Riddlesdown dip from Mitchley Hill up towards Downs Court Road, and there's St James's Road that goes down, the very sort of steep road with the church at the bottom. It means nothing if you live on the other side of the world. Very sorry. But anyway, at the top of that house, there's a blue plaque. Peter Cushing lived there. And I think now 3 years in a row, I've got in just too late to be one of the few that get a little look around the house. It's a beautiful Art Deco style house from the outside. So that's really worth a visit if you can get there. But a lot of these do get signed up for very quickly. All sorts of buildings in London are available. A lot of the ones that we saw last year, like the almshouses in Croydon, that was a great tour. And I went to the Croydon Archives in Catherine Street. Obviously interested in that. But a lot of those from last year are the same this year, so I didn't see any point in going again. Let other people have a go, have a look. And what I did get access to this year was and I've forgotten the name of it off the top of my head. It's the large church at West Croydon, near the bus terminus, Poplar Walk, that area, back of Marks and Spencer's. I think they've got some very nice artefacts in there. So, yes, that's my trip. Saturday morning, I've got a slot there. And then I've got to get over to Crystal Palace for the football. Excuse me. That's right. Where we got open house. Other things coming up. So the walk and talk season, it never goes away far. I've got plans to do Godstone fairly soon. And my mate Graham, who comes along, he's going to come along on that one with me. But Graham doesn't like being on camera, but he's very good having support behind the scenes. I've caught him on camera a couple of times. He may know this. Accidentally, maybe in a reflection. But anyway. Also, Tatsfield. So Tatsfield's got an interesting history, both in the village itself, but in the surrounding areas. And Graham knows two people who've got some extensive knowledge of that history. So I think we're probably going to do a bit of a prep meeting over a cup of something, so that I can get notes together, and then we'll go out and work out the best way of filming it. So That should be good fun. Quite looking forward to doing that. I also had, I think the request may have come in once or twice now. I had the request to do a visit to Warlingham, but it was almost a behind the scenes. St Michael's Church, that is the one. Thank you. It's behind the scenes, and because there's some history that needs to be talked about from the surrounding area around Warlingham Green. I've touched on some of it, but there were some activities behind or on where Mint Walk Recreation Ground is now. So the usual thing, I will dig out the maps, go back over a few layers on the maps to find out what may have been there before, and so I can bring that into the story. So I think I'll do that fairly quickly, hopefully-ish. Why do I say that? Because I won't. But there's always stuff to do, always stuff to plan. I love every minute of it. It's just I do get in my own way in terms of going out and actually creating the videos. I've often thought I could do more videos, shorter videos. I could cut corners by just doing a walk and talk and not really doing any research. But I feel I've built up something now where I want to try and just be a little bit different to those kind of videos. So I'm not going to change my styling at the moment. Quality over quantity, maybe, perhaps, hopefully. Hopefully you see it that way. And I like trying out the odd editing effect, as you've probably seen. So other things coming up, a refresh in November. So this will be number 5, November 2020, 21, 22, 23, 24. Yes, because I started in 2020, where I just visit Croydon town and talk about show what life is like in Croydon. Trying to find a different angle each time. I did bring in the walking and talking bit last time. I may do something around the theatres of Croydon, many of which took place up the main kind of stretch. So it's that's something that is planned. The Croydon refresh, normally do that in earlyish November. Croydon water history I mentioned before, so I've done a talk about that. So I've kind of done the research. I've got the material. I know the sites. It's just how I put it together, and it may just be I go out there with a camera and just start recording it, and then kind of worry about it and edit. I just thought, is it going to be too big a video if I do the whole story? Because it goes from the early 1800s to, I think it was the 1950s when the last local water tower was built at Selsdon. So we'll see. I like the fact that there's options. So sometimes I've sometimes gone out and filmed and then come back and not liked it and gone out and done it again. So maybe that'll happen. As I say, I have got the information. It's just putting it together, and there is loads more. Right, so just a couple of other comments. Mid-80s, brilliant. Godstone. What surprised me about Godstone is that my main experience of Godstone was always going through it. I knew of the White Hart. There's a video, lovely little video, one of the kind of Beaumont or Pathé or one of those news sites where it's got... I just picked up on another thing there. Yes, it's got Canadian troops going into the pub and throwing darts and all that sort of stuff. That's a lovely little video. So, but yeah, going through Godstone to get somewhere else, either turning right to Bletchingley or straight through, I don't know, going down the coast, going to Godstone Farm, whatever. But there's loads more to it. So the walk was prepared in the 1990s by a lady from the Bourne Society. So I'm basically going to kind of blow the dust off of that walk and film it. So I'm probably going to get it done fairly soon. We've got another comment. Father-in-law saw Buddy Holly in Croydon in one of the theatres. I think that would have been the Davis Theatre, Jeff. Because I must admit, I hadn't appreciated that Buddy Holly played there. We did some filming there for one of my walk and talks, and at a similar time on one of the many Croydon history Facebook pages, someone made reference to that. Yeah, Godstone Ponds, indeed. So yeah, Buddy Holly did certainly appear at the Davis Theatre. Coach House, Godstone in the late 1970s when it was good. I can't remember where is the Coach House relative to. I'm sure it was the White Hart we went to for our lunch on Bank Holiday Monday. They had Godstone Fete there, and we had a bit of lunch there. I can't remember the Coach House. I probably should. Davis Theatre. Remember it now. So we do. I mean, a lot of pubs are closing, aren't they? I thought that was certainly a London thing, but we noticed that up in East Anglia when we were travelling around. A number of them got to let signs on them now. So yeah. So on the green itself. Okay. I'm sure that will feature in the walk and talk of Godstone. It's funny because we had the summer finally gave us some reasonably stable weather, and I was always doing other things, and now I often find I quite like getting out at this time of year and doing the filming before the real weather kicks in, real winter weather kicks in, and lo and behold, we've got regular showers, so that's not always great when you're getting your camera out. The Donkey Derby was a feature. We went early to the fete, and then we had some lunch. We're actually waiting outside the pub to open which is not always a good look. But we went in the pub as one of the first customers, and it got very busy afterwards. So right, okay, opposite the Bell. So is that more if you go if you're going south? Out of Godstone, I assume that's where the Coach and Horses is. Anyway, I'll find it. I will definitely find it, and it will feature. So we were early at the fete, so we'd walked around it and sort of done it, and then it was Sue's mum's birthday, so we then went for a little drive. Where did we go to? Titsy Place. We went to Titsy Place, had a look around the gardens and the grounds, and that was really lovely. And had a cream tea. That was even nicer. So Walworth East. Okay. Right. I will bear that in mind. Yes. And also I'm kind of thinking, even though I'm not doing the regular country walks per se, I do believe there's going to be a nice mix in the Godstone walk of countryside. And I'm probably going to just get back and do some of those. I quite like getting out and sliding around in the mud on some of these winter walks, so that's going to feature as long as I can find a story around it. In fact, I've mentioned airstrips a couple of times, most recently in the video Tillingdown Farm. There's some really lovely comments on the back of that, by the way, but where there was a picture from one of the earlier Google Earth images which showed a plane just on one of the fields there. And I had a game of golf yesterday at Woodcote Park with a mate, and this kind of plane was going over. Looks to be battling the wind. And he said, "Oh, well, on one of the holes near some farmland over the kind of boundary, he said he saw this farmer get out, climb into the plane and take off the other day. So there's obviously a private airstrip there." Yes, Old Causden on my list. So that's a very good point, Carol. Thank you for that. So Causden, I did a then and now because I had some old images of Causden. And I do need to fill in the blanks there because it's all connected to this kind of connected story that I want to tell of the area. I also think there's more in Kenley that I need to do. I want to try and get into the waterworks if I can. Not sure if that would be possible. But there's things like the site of the Gardener's Tea Rooms. There's some nice walks down there that I could maybe walk from Hamsey Green down to Kenley, do a kind of bit in the A22 part of Kenley. Maybe see there's one or two sites where you can see the Bourne River, which will probably be flowing again in the winter. So that might feature. Would I go as far as Bletchingley? Had friends whose family owned an estate there. I'd consider it. Certainly consider it. It's. I like to think that all of these places are sort of connected, and if I'm going to, I'm committed to doing Godstone. So That's a natural progression. Do you remember the Prince Albert pub, Bletchley? We used to go there years ago, and it must have been closed years, actually. It was just as you enter from Godstone, it was on the left. But it closed down and went back to being a house rather than a public house. But they used to have a lovely restaurant there, or lovely pub grub. Causden Common is vast. Yeah, links up with Kenny Common. Yes. So when I did the Farthing Down video with Ranger Tom, that was great. Sue and I also did a bat walk one evening with them. That wasn't really filmable, but that was great fun. So I feel that some of those areas have a calling for me as well. 32-ounce steak. I remember it. Yeah, I mean, and do you know what, Jeff? It's that I remember. Sue and I don't eat meat nowadays, but I do remember. I remember it overhanging the plate, a steak there that I had once. And I think that to have a separate plate for your chips and peas and salad garnish and all the other things that you have. But yeah, I think that must have been actually closed about 15, 20 years. Maybe it's back in the 80s or whatever that used to go there. Good old Prince Albert. So that was good fun. So yeah, it's been brilliant to see these suggestions in the chat today, guys. I really appreciated that. Because I don't ever think that I'm going to run out of subjects. And it's nice in some ways to do subjects a few different ways or a few different times. I'll almost be getting to the point soon where some of the stuff that I've already filmed has already gone and been replaced by other things. So maybe I need to do a little bit of a refresh in some of these areas. But I still get loads of lovely comments on YouTube. People contact me separately. I get emails and messages out of the blue. It's quite something, and even from the chats as well. I was able to connect up two old school friends from the 1950s just from a chat that I gave. A talk that I gave, and a video that I've made. The two things connected to people who went to school together many moons ago, so that's all fun. Cross-country route over Farthing Downs many moons ago. Yeah. Oh, converted pub. Oh, that could be that. Could be that. The pub that was bought and converted. Chaldon Church is an interesting subject. So there was a brilliant talk about Chaldon Court from the lady who owns it and lives there at the Bourne Society a few months back. And there's always a thirst for information coming through because there's elements of its very rich history that they still can't kind of fully piece together. So I've not made it to Chaldon yet. So that's where they've got that brilliant story of life, tree of life. A really nice piece. I think you might know my wife's sister, Sarah Vince. Is that right? I'm not sure. I may do, Jeff. Maybe message me afterwards so we can follow up on that one. And just, I mean, randomly, I made a video year or so ago. Hamsey Green. It was one of my country walks, Hamsey Green, Farley and Loop Round. And I had a lovely comment on there today from someone who, I think they might be coming over from the States. I think that's what I read correctly. His girlfriend is in Hamsey Green. And to kind of help to familiarise himself with Hamsey Green, he found my channel and my videos on Hamsey Green. Brilliant. Huge bonus. And he said he's looking forward to exploring Kingswood and, getting familiar with some of the things that I've covered. So, but some of those mornings out there, I think when I went there, it was a sort of fresh morning, but when the sun comes through, it creates this beautiful sun rays through the mist. I think it's the thumbnail of the video's got that. So, it's a really nice place. I'll never tire of Kingswood. Cool. So we've been going for about 45 minutes, which is about the average for such things. It's been brilliant. I've had probably more chat on here than I've had before, and I absolutely love that. Really appreciate that. Thank you for the videos, Phil. You bring history to life. Keep up the fantastic work. Thank you very much, Mickey. I really do appreciate those comments. One of the guys today said he liked my narrating. I must admit, I suppose you get confident about doing these things the more you do them to a degree. And if people keep subscribing and watching and liking, then I guess that's the best feedback, that you're kind of doing things that will appeal to certain people. You can never appeal to all the people all the time, of course. And that's all I do. I try and get the consistency, do a bit of research to tell a story. It is just telling stories at the end of the day and showing stories to some degree when we go out. And the bit that really does resonate for me, it's hard to pick a favourite element out of all the stuff that I do, but when people have a real nostalgia connection with something that I've recorded in the last year or so, for argument's sake, and something they experienced as maybe a child 50, 60, maybe 70 years ago, that's just wonderful. I know you can go onto Google Street View and look for things, but I try and add a bit of colour, a bit of commentary to it. So, yeah, brilliant. So, what was that? Slides Oak Pond. Yes. I had a comment about that recently, a theory that, well, it was because there's another pond on the other side of the road, which is, I believe, on a map. And it was that there was a kind of bridge that went over what was actually one pond. It's a very long comment on the video, but, and it might be that this horse and coach and horses that went into the lake came off the bridge. Don't know. Will we ever know? Memories. Lived in Devon for 26 years, but never forget those early years. Brilliant. Sorry. And yes, it was the Prince Albert. Brilliant. Oh, cool. Great. So, folks, thank you. Thank you for this brilliant engagement. I'm going to, well, this will upload automatically, and I still do an audio version. Because I'm recording this differently, I haven't worked out quite the easiest way of extracting the audio. I'll probably just download the video and take it from there, but you don't need to worry about that. That's my problem. Fell into Sanderstead Pond as a scout. We're born in Croydon, love the videos, moved up to Old Calls, and great place to be as a teenager. It was. Actually, one quick Sanderstead Pond story. In the drought of 1976, which probably most of us may remember, me and my brother and my mate Graham, who we met up with last week in Suffolk, we were playing at Sanderstead Pond, or what was the remains of Sanderstead Pond at the time, because it was more of a puddle, because it had almost dried up. And someone came along and said, we're doing a piece for the Croydon Advertiser, can we take a picture? There'd probably be a different response nowadays. We said, yeah, whatever, I don't know what we were doing, poking sticks or doing something. And I don't think we ended up on the main publication. May have done, but we were certainly on the midweek post. Do you remember we used to get the Croydon midweek post freebie and then the Advertiser on the Friday? My dad works at the Advertiser. And I've tried to track down that picture to no avail. So if you know of anyone that's got 1976 summer editions of the Croydon Midweek Post, it may one day end up on the British Newspaper Archive, which I'm a subscriber of, but it would be great to see that, to get a copy of that. 16th Pearly Sharks used to help cleaning out Sanderstead Pond. I was too eager. Brilliant. Yes, well, maybe you start pulling at the weeds and they pull back sometimes. But yes, thank you so much, guys. Really do appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and as I say in my videos, I'll see you in the next one.